continue to grow as we go along. So thank you guys for all your efforts, and we really appreciate it. So thank you. Winter sports, as we know, winter sports is actually coming to an end right now. I believe it's over at the end of this week, and then fall sports, and I am saying fall, will start on March 1st. As you know, we had to start testing for high-risk sports, and we've done, it's been very effective. We've had really limited number of any positive cases come out of it, so we've been able to move forward within our sports, so that has been very positive. Towards the end of the week, this week, we will start with, and again, remember, it's for high-risk sports only, we'll start with our fall sports doing some of that. I hope everyone had a really nice vacation over the break. Obviously, we were still dealing with some snow, so I'd like to thank again all of our grounds crew and buildings and grounds guys again to kind of keep us safe here, so thank you to them. Just a couple of new things that are going on right now is that, I don't know if you heard, as of last night, the Governor Cuomo put out another executive order. It's 202.95, and now they are starting to collect. As you know, they collect COVID information on a regular daily basis, number of positive cases that you have within your school district. All school districts must report it. Now they're asking us to report on a weekly basis those of staff and really teachers or who are vaccinated. So that is something that we have to start to gather information on as well. You may have also heard or seen something in the paper today where President Biden put things out related to state assessments and the belief that we would have state assessments this year. We do not know necessarily where it falls since it's so new within New York right now. So once we have that information, we will be sure to share that with you. So just kind of hold on and just wait for the information to come. And the last thing is, over the break, CDC came out with some new guidelines. Though they're very similar if you have gone through them, still talking about the two best, I'll call them mitigation techniques, is really still the social distancing and also the mask wearing, and then along with the washing of the hands. So that's something that they still are talking about there. They have talked about loosening up with some of the guidelines when people are vaccinated, but again, remember, all that needs to still be approved by New York State and Suffolk County as well. So I'll just, before I kind of move into my next part, I'll take if there's any questions about any of the updates that I gave, if the board has any questions about any of that information. Okay. We have two presentations for you tonight that we'll do in a little bit. This is going to be kind of the order of events. So we have two presentations tonight. We have a budget presentation that I know Mr. Snyder is looking forward to sharing with everybody. And then Dr. Fulton will be doing a curriculum presentation for us as well. So we'll do that. But before we do that, I'd like to get back to some of the acknowledgement where we can acknowledge some people. Is we have some of our teachers of the month either with us here today or online. Obviously, it's a different time, but I would like to recognize them. Tonight, we're going to recognize 5 teachers. We're going back to September, so we have Miss Meredith Breen, who's going to be our Teacher of the Month for September, and she's here with us, so thank you. And I'm going to read something about you in a little bit, but I'm just going to go through that. We have Lisa Guariello, who is our October Teacher of the Month, so congratulations to her. We also have Stephanie Birdsall. Ms. Birdsall, I know is here with us. Good to see you. Who is here for Teacher of the Month for November. Jen Peterson, Ms. Peterson, who is our December Teacher of the Month. And then Mr. Iberger, who I believe is online tonight, who is our January Teacher of the Month. So I want to read them, but the one thing I always talk about is one of the best things to my job is being able to get into all the classrooms. And being a district our size, it allows me to do that on a regular basis. Even during this different time of COVID, where it's made it a little bit more difficult, I will still say that is the best part of the day. And I just would like to thank the 5 of you for all that you do, because you truly make the day enjoyable. And we have different roles, so I just really wanted to thank all of you. So I'm going to start with Ms. Breen, who is with us here today. I would like to take the opportunity to read this. A side note, Ms. Breen is in my Peloton cult, so she joins me every Friday morning, so just so you know. And it is becoming, I guess, a cult around here in Bayport Blue Point. If you're interested in the scores, I'll let you know. All right? So here we go. Ms. Breen, September's Teacher of the Month is an active member of our association and a dedicated special education teacher who is genuinely committed to her profession. This teacher is flexible and yet is a strong leader who is able to offer effective and practical solutions and suggestions for educating students with disabilities. She works in our LEAP program with some of the most impaired students in the district. Over the years, she has taught multiple life skills from toileting and eye contact, all the way up to 4th grade reading and math. She always keeps a positive attitude in any situation she encounters, and she strives to maintain safety in the classroom, even in the most challenging cases. In addition to being an Academy Street building representative for the past 3 years, she is also involved with a number of committees throughout the district, and she runs the Academy Street Social Committee. She is often seen at community events as well as our association's social events. She's outgoing and friendly, and we are all very fortunate to have her as our colleague. Congratulations to Ms. Meredith Breen, a professional who is very deserving of being recognized as September's Teacher of the Month. So congratulations. Ms. Breen, we do have a little something here for you, so I'll bring this over to you. I think we are doing photos, and we're still about to do that. But I still would like to read what was written about her. She was said nominated for our, and she might be online right now. That I don't know. So I'm going to take the time. She is our October Teacher of the Month. Lisa is an amazing and dedicated teacher and colleague who always puts her students first, being in a new position this year. Lisa quickly adapted to her new role as a co-teacher with enthusiasm and a smile on her face. Lisa goes out of her way to make sure her students are supported both academically and emotionally. She continuously takes time to talk to her students and provide them with whatever they may need: breakfast, snacks, clothing, and even special gifts. Lisa has been devoting even more of her own time to make sure that families of students with IEPs participating in remote learning are provided with the necessary support. Lisa makes all her students feel safe and supported and is a go-to person for several students at Blue Point Elementary. She's a team player and always willing to support her colleagues and offer suggestions for working with the special education population. She is able to provide modifications to help even the neediest children. Lisa is a special person and very deserving of this award. Congratulations to Ms. Quariello. I don't think she's here, but we do have a gift for her, and we have that. I know Ms. Birdsell is up here to my left, so congratulations and welcome, and thank you for everything. Ms. Birdsell is our November Teacher of the Month. This educator is truly a dedicated and passionate teacher. Her calm air and genuine kindness to both her colleagues and students inspires everyone around her to be better. She's always willing to help and support her fellow teachers. This year she has gone above and beyond, trying to assist her colleagues with benchmarking. She has always been there and volunteered her knowledge and experience to help new teachers at Sylvan Avenue. But this year she became an official mentor as well. Her students know how much she cares about them, and she constantly strives for them to become the best readers that they can be. She has been a member of the Teacher of the Year committee for many years. She deserves to be Teacher of the Year and is an honor to work with. And it is an honor to work with Ms. Stephanie Birdsell. Congratulations. And we have a gift for you as well. Miss Peterson, she may be online as well. Oh, hey, Jen, how are you? Sorry, I didn't see you. Jen is our December Teacher of the Month, so congratulations. So December Teacher of the Month is an integral part of our faculty here at James Wilson Young. She is someone who is hardworking, dedicated, extremely creative, and she's a great listener. She's always looking for new and innovative ways to improve her lessons. She takes on many challenges in what appears to be an effortless manner. She's an amazing resource for her peers, always willing to collaborate and share her ideas. She doesn't hesitate to offer help to her students or peers. She always rises to the occasion without a single complaint. Additionally, she willingly represents her peers as a building representative for the BBP TA. You'll be hard-pressed to find anyone as passionate and devoted to her profession. And on a side note, many years we have been changing Jen's role within the district, and she's always willing to help us out, so I really appreciate that. So thank you so much, really do. We can go. Come on up, Jen. And last but not least is Mr. Eiberger, who I believe is online tonight, so I will go through this. I do believe he just bought himself a Peloton, so we'll have to get him in our group. This teacher is a great support for his students. He can easily be heard in his hallway, exposing which mathematician is most popular. He suggested Pythagoras might be the one. If you walk past his room, you will see that he continues to teach as if all students are in person, even when most are virtual. He will keep them after the bell to be sure they have all understood the concept of the day. He's available for questions and review to make sure his students are successful. This teacher is also a role model and resource for his fellow teachers. His advice on how to frame synchronous lessons has become invaluable to many of his colleagues. He has shared his ideas for using the smart notebook camera to record sections of a lesson, something he has been doing long before the pandemic. His teaching methods are models of effective teaching, but his modesty leaves him open to try new ideas. As his colleagues, we admire him for his professionalism, and we appreciate how much he cares about each of us. As the president of the association, this teacher works diligently to make sure every question we have is answered. And even though we know he is stretched beyond the limits of what is expected, he does his job humbly and without complaint. This write-up doesn't even begin to cover all that he does for his students, his colleagues, and his association. However, knowing this teacher, it is obvious that Mr. Eiberger exemplifies what it means to be the teacher of the month. Congratulations. Congratulations to Mr. Eiberger. I will make sure that he gets this, and I obviously would like to thank him as well. We work together on a daily basis. And he's been an integral part to many of the initiatives that we've been working on as well. So thank you to him. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Miller now.
Thank you, Dr. Harney. Congratulations to the Teachers of the Month. Before we get into our student recognitions tonight, we just have one more report from our student delegate, Mr. Honey. How are you tonight, sir?
Good, thank you. So adding on to what Dr. Harney said earlier, yesterday we started the back in school 5 days a week for those students who chose to elect for that option. I myself elected to be back in school 5 days a week. And just adding on to what Dr. Harney had said, it has been going very, very well. The first 2 days I was in every single one of my classes. I don't know if that's the case for everyone, and I think that might be specific just for right now since some students are in quarantine after break. But even for my friends that have been having some classes in the Virtual Learning Center, the VLC, they've all been going very well. And I know a majority of students have been able to get back into the classroom, interact with their peers and teachers on projects and classwork. And for me, I can already see I'm definitely getting a much better understanding of what's being taught just from being in the classroom. So I thank the board and the administration for giving that option to the students who wish to take it. Additionally, seniors are working on scholarships and senior theses to finish up this school year. As Dr. Harney said, fall sports are starting next week, and I know there's been a successful winter sports season that's coming to an end this week as well. And then the last thing I have is, in just a few minutes, I believe we're going to have a curriculum presentation from Dr. Fulton. One of the things that we're outlining in the presentation is an overview of our new STEM lab that I believe last year was the first year that students were in the STEM lab. Our STEM program here at the high school has 3 individual courses. Those are design and drawing for production, computer and architectural design, and principles of engineering. I've taken all 3 of the courses, and having an interest in going into a field of engineering, these courses have been really beneficial to help me get an idea of just what the career may hold and a better insight into the science, technology, engineering, and math part that makes up the STEM lab. So some things that we do in each of those classes, in design and drawing for production, we get an overlook of programs like SolidWorks and things like that help us design like parts and tools and really things that a lot of kids in other districts that don't have access to this technology won't be doing until college if they choose to take up a career like that. In computer architectural design, we focused a lot more on architecture and using programs like Chief Architecture, and students in 9th, 10th, and upperclassmen are designing like their dream houses and things like that down to the scale. We're learning how to use certain tools and things like that that we wouldn't have access to otherwise. A lot of these classes use both the computer lab that's in the STEM lab as well as the tools and machines in the actual wood shop, which, as you'll see in the video we're going to show in a second, is more than just like an average wood shop. We have a lot of like really cool laser cutter machines and new technology that's up and coming. Additionally, in principles of engineering, we learn a lot about how to work more on the technical side of things. So in this class was where we were building bridges and water-powered cars and building tables and stuff like that. This year's principles of engineering class has assembled, I believe, around like 2 or 3 tables so far, and I think they're working on some more that they've dedicated to the class of 2020. So these are all things that we're learning how to do at a high school level. So I think now we're going to show a video introducing Bayport Blue Point STEM Lab that we started having classes in last year, and from everyone I know, it's been an amazing experience. So I think we'll show that now.
The world is changing. Our workforce is changing with it. At Bayport Blue Point, our education process has been adapted, preparing our students for the jobs of the future. Embracing the latest technology in architecture and engineering, we have developed a curriculum and working lab to help propel the next generation of thinkers and doers. With more companies seeking creative problem solving in the tech space, our students will graduate prepared to meet this demand. Over the years, schools have cut their technology workshop programs. Bayport Blue Point School District is one of the first to see the demand from both the community and local industry. This is not your dad's high school shop class. Although students will learn how to use traditional shop equipment, we use our math and science skills to solve real-world problems. We explore mechanisms, automation, CNC cutting, 3D printing, rapid prototyping, and laser integration. Join us as we build a foundation for the new technological revolution.
So I guess just a little more I'd like to add on to that is Mr. Becker is the teacher that teaches all 3 of those courses. And as he mentioned in the video, it is a lot of using more of problem solving and science and math than you would think, actually just general knowledge of how to use tools. A lot of mornings we would go in, Principles of Engineering last year was first period, we would go in and we would spend a lot of our morning problem solving, and some things I've done have been like building electric skateboards that I get to bring home and still ride around today. And then in design and drawing for production, we get to model lighthouses. So some of my friends and I draw to scale the Montauk Lighthouse, and then we got to assemble it. And a lot of these projects and things that we work on in these classes can be found in the high school lobby. So that's pretty much all I have. I think we're going to go a little more into it in the presentation from Dr. Fulton, but that's just a general overview of the STEM program and the new STEM lab that has been put into the high school. So thank you. That's all.
Great
Thank
job,
you, Mr. Honey. Any questions for Mr. Honey? And Mr. Brodsky?
So no surprise for me. Engineering is my profession, so I have a soft spot for this kind of content, obviously. Just to follow up on what you were saying, SolidWorks is a program that I work with every day, and that's in a professional environment. That's something that I didn't really get exposed to until college. So having the ability at a high school level to get that much further ahead with it is going to be great for you. It's going to make transition to college that much easier, and ultimately, it's a real life tool that you're going to be working with in a professional environment too. So, excellent to see.
Yeah, and students actually we're first taught SolidWorks in design and drawing for production, which is an elective offered to freshmen. So this is a program that we're becoming well versed in from our first year, and these courses are often taken in sequence with each other. So you go from DDP to CAD and then Principles of Engineering, and it's a program that we use throughout all 3 courses. So it's something by the time you finish the sequence of the 3 courses, you have a really good understanding of how to use it, and it is really beneficial. It helps me when I think about problems going about every day, really, is using that program. So yeah.
Thanks for the update. Appreciate it. At this time, we will turn it over to Dr. Fulton for our student recognition for the Energy Bus and the All-State students.
Hey, Rob, good job. Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Just for the students, after we call you up, is our photographer still here? Are we doing the same? Okay, in the lobby. You'll come up, you'll get your certificate, and then you'll go into the lobby so that way we could take a nice picture. So, we're very pleased to recognize our students here in the district. The Energy Bus has been an initiative since last year, and periodically, as our elementary students encounter the different themes and concepts with the Energy Bus, we have activities in which the students begin to create things to kind of highlight specific themes. So we have a number of elementary students here today from the 3 buildings, and the theme this was for spreading kindness. So for our first 2 students from Academy, we can call up Mrs. Van. So I would have came to you, but I'm attached to a wire.
So just so you know, the students were all encouraged to submit their license plates that showed kindness. And our 2 winners, and like the winners in the other elementary schools, were voted on by the teachers in the school. So we congratulate both of our winners. We have Sierra Resnius. And Jack Spanos. You can stay for a second. Jack Spanos. Sierra.
From Blue Point, we have Isabel Sanchez. And we have Jason Scottley. From Sylvan, we have Juliana Cirillo. Congratulations. And we have Nayara Lopez Diaz. Big round of applause for our elementary students for the Energy Bus. In addition, tonight, we also had 2 students at the high school that have been honored by NYSSMA, the Music Association, for All-State at the All-State Festival. So we can call it Mr. Haas to honor our students.
Thank you, Dr. Fulton. Just really want to congratulate these 2 students, especially over the past year, to be going through everything we're doing in music. The amount of lessons that they have and things of that nature have been reduced, and to still see the high quality of work that they're able to produce really goes to the amount of work they put into it. So congratulations to them. So for violin, we have Christopher Cody. And for piccolo and flute, we have Cecily Poix.
Congratulations, guys.
Mr. Miller, I turn the meeting back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Fulton. Congratulations, guys. Thank you so much for coming tonight, too. We appreciate it. Ms. Peterson, don't feel like you have to stay, but you can stay. At this time, we'll turn it over for what you guys have been waiting for. Mr. Snyder with a budget presentation that we've been looking forward to.
Good evening. This is, I believe, our 3rd budget presentation for the year. We'll go through the tax levy calculation and present the board with a couple of scenarios of what the tax levy looks like at the rollover discussion purposes, which is 294 up to the 4.2. We will talk about this version of the budget, which includes all COVID-19 expenditures, and disclose some of what that is to you. And then we'll talk specifically about the library debt and the impact it has on the district's books. So looking at the tax levy, for purposes of rolling over the budget and just having a discussion, we use 2.94%. That's a $55.5 million levy. The calculation itself allows us to go to 4.22. It's an increase of $688,000, bringing the levy to 56.2. We can land anywhere from 4.22 to 0 if you want, and still only require a simple majority vote to pass. It would all be compliant. And so we put this chart together using 0.25 to 0.3 increments judgmentally, just to give you an idea of what that would look like. And we'll probably carry this forward for future budget discussions as we get closer to adoption. This is a repeat slide with one extra bullet at the bottom. That's the actual calculation that gets you to the 4.22. Again, what happens on the 1st is the district is required to submit a draft tax levy to the controller's office. We never truly understand why we have to give them a draft number when the real number isn't due until budget adoption, but be that as it may, we submit a draft number, and that number is widely published in Newsday. So right now, unless there's objections, it would be my recommendation that we submit the 294 and then continue the discussions with the board about what you'd like to do with the levy going forward to adoption on April 20th. This is a projection, and I'll emphasize that. What I do know is what our debt service is, because those are concrete numbers. We have the debt service schedules. What I don't know is how building aid could change in the future. But what you see here is a projection of the tax levy increases going forward to 27, 28, based on data I have now. And you could see that it more or less tracks along what I call the inflation line, which is really the statutory increases seen there in red, CPI, and growth in tax base. It's interesting when we talk about 21-22 being a high year at 4.22 in terms of what the calculation permits. Again, we discussed that's because building aid is coming off of our books. We're losing revenue that's began 15 years ago. What happens in 26, 27, I'm referring to a trustee question that happened a couple of days ago, is debt service is coming off of the books, so the exact opposite happens, and that'll be a very interesting year to manage the budget, 26, 27. This is a summary look at the entire budget, the COVID version. Here you see the 1920 budget with actual, and then 21 to 22 in comparison. I sort of judgmentally said, let me take any increase over 20,000 and 3.5% to sort of discuss it with you. That brings you right to line 8 and 9, which is facilities. We'll have a separate budget discussion on facilities, if not at the next meeting, the meeting after that, but rest assured that some of that information is right in this presentation, and it's mostly COVID related, whether it's PPE, things related to facilities, or even staffing. That's what's driving that increase. Moving down to line 11, that's actually a transfer. We hired, if you recall, a BOCES consultant who now works for the district. So while line, where is it? The computer's line 20 still shows an increase. That increase would have been that much higher had we not transferred money to hire a BOCES consultant. Line 12, once again, reappears because the cost of insuring school districts is just always seeming that it's, above any threshold I have. General liability went up 5%, and cybersecurity, no surprise, went up 20%, the cost of insuring. Going down to line 18, this is a summary of many different codes that sort of tells you how much money is going into general teaching and general education. That, again, is also related to COVID, as we have had some COVID hires that appear there. Also, if you recall, in the teacher's contract, there was a 1-year freeze on lane movements. So in 2021, so for 21, 22, those lane movements get added back, and it's sort of an artificial spike that appears in that code. Line 18 is OC-Ed. Based on the 3-year calculation that they use for that, 1 more student was added, and you put an inflationary increase on that, and that's what you have there. And we'll look at that budget when we do, well, you can see that in the high school detail. Computer-assisted instruction is also a budget that we will present here in public probably a week from today. There's $150,000 in that budget to replace current devices that are either broken, expired, or out of warranty, and we can discuss that next week. Moving down, health services is also, no surprise, COVID-related. There's some staff in there, as well as a lot of PPE related to the nursing. Employee benefits just, gets your attention because it's a big number, but it stayed pretty close to inflation. Pension expenses were a little higher than we would have liked them to be in terms of inflation, but 600,000 is a big number, so we wanted to put that up there on the screen for you. And debt service we're going to talk about in a separate slide today related to the library. So again, where you're at right now is 4.06% on the draft budget, but that's going to last about another slide. That's your history of your adopted budgets going back to 17, 18. You can see we've come in pretty low, pretty reasonable, right at the rate of inflation. We're at 4.06, and it is because of what's happening with the library and what the law requires us to do in terms of funding the library. So these are just summary statements. You're at 4.06. This version includes $944,000 in COVID expenditures. That's down slightly from the last budget we disclosed to you, mostly because when we did the technology budget, we found some efficiencies there and were able to reduce it. All department budgets were rolled over and frozen with the exception of buildings and grounds, tech, and PPS, and we will present them to you separately at future board meetings. So the new additional debt service from the construction of the library accounts for $956,000, or 1.27% of the total increase. It's interesting that there's no fiscal impact to us because we pay the debt on their behalf, but we also collect tax revenue directly from the library to pay it. We act as what's called a flow-through agency for them. It's a little misleading to have it on our books, I agree with it, but the law requires us to do it. But when you exclude that library debt from our books, we're down at 2.79, which is a very good percentage given where we still are in the budget process to be below 3%. Currently, and we'll talk about that 2.79% in more detail on the next slide. Right now, the deficit grew a little bit from 1,590,000 to 1.6, primarily because of issues in PPS and movement of students with CSEs. And again, we are looking to fund that deficit if we had to go out today with a budget like this using the surplus we obtained in 1920. So looking specifically at the public library, again, for us, there's no fiscal impact to us. We literally just handle the bookkeeping for them. If we were to remove their debt from our budget process and use what's called the net method of budgeting, which is what I'm recommending, we would simply then, in July, at the reorg meeting, have a resolution to do a no-impact budget amendment where we would then put that debt back on our books along with the revenue, and we're even. And we've done those sorts of resolutions here, systematically on a number of occasions. Think about donations and insurance recoveries. They all come here as budget amendments. We alter the budget. There's no impact to the taxpayer because it's fully funded, and that's what we're recommending we do with the library going forward. So looking specifically at where we are with COVID in this COVID version of the budget, here again you could see we have 4 elementary teachers and 3 TAs. That's reflected in that 2110 code that we just spoke about. Custodians, down below you can see the PPE and health services and buildings and grounds, a .4 nurse. In total, we have $944,000, and as we begin to sort of look at these expenditures and try and get a handle on what a non-COVID budget would look like, assuming we can even have such a thing, we also have to, again, consider, and it's a bit of a reminder, that there are other programs that the administration is looking at in terms of supporting students post-COVID that $944,000 could be earmarked for. So I don't think it's reasonable to assume that the entire $944 is going to come out of the budget based on what we know now. Certainly the superintendent and the rest of the administration are going to have to, get a better handle on what we may be earmarking additional funds for. The schedule again next week will likely do technology and PPS, and buildings and grounds will happen on March 16th. Nothing has changed. All eyes are on state aid. The legislature, there's really a tremendous amount of pressure on them to come through and sort through all the federal grant issues. Assuming we have a state aid proposal on time, we'll discuss that proposal on the 6th. April 20th, we can do a presentation if we have to. We adopt the budget on the 20th. We set the final tax levy on the 20th, and then the 4th is the hearing, and the 18th is the vote. Questions?
Questions from trustees? Mr. Brodsky?
Mr. Snyder, thanks for the presentation as always. I do have a couple questions. On slide 8, we had indicated that the projected shortfall is roughly $1.6 million, and we're looking to fund that with our surplus from last year. Was that surplus in the $1.1 million range?
That was a 1.8.
1.8, okay. Yeah. So we're up 200K on the right side of things then?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Okay, good. I know that, with COVID, we've kind of delayed the energy performance contract. I'm assuming that we aren't taking any credit for that in this upcoming budget cycle?
Yeah, just the timing of where that project is and how long we believe it'll be with SED, as well as the lead time for some of the steel that is needed for the windows and the canopy structure at Sylvan. All those combined, it puts it out of our reach to receive any of those financial benefits in 21-22.
Okay. I know that we had cut roughly, withholding 10% of the budget related to state aid being withheld and preparing for that. Does the budget put into place, which roughly is what, $700,000 or so in that range?
I'm sorry, I missed the
$700,000 is what we cut thereabouts, if it's 10%.
You're talking about for this year,
Yes.
we withheld about,
Right.
I don't recall the exact number, but we are going to do the same thing again and set that 10% apart aside in a separate, like, purchase order to reserve it so that it can't be spent on all of the departmental budgets that you see, and I'd have to check with that number, so
Sure.
without speaking off the cuff.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the questions I have is the budget as it stands now does not include the reintroduction of any of those programs that we cut. Is that correct? So no gifted and talented, no middle school tennis, any of that. Is that part of this budget or still excluded?
So if you're looking at this, and this is where it becomes a little tricky with staff. So right now, what Mrs. Snyder has done is, in terms of staff, he's kind of rolled it over as now. That is assuming that we have to follow the same 6 feet protocols and all those. So the answer to your question is that is correct.
Okay.
So everything what we currently have is what we would run with next year. If we'd said, hey, you know what, we want to do this, plus we want to bring back some of those other programs, there would be additional funds that would have to go into this.
Okay.
Because remember, we kind of shifted staff around tremendously to kind of help us reduce our class sizes. That's why we were one of the school districts early on that were able to bring back all our elementary students. If you recall, we probably added, I remember right, 14 new sections at the elementary level, which is 14 classes. And if you're looking up there, we hired 4. So that's how creative we were able to be. I don't know if that's where we'll be next year, but you are correct when you were saying that.
Okay. And then related to the COVID expenditures here, on slide 10, you know, a little over 800,000 of 944 is staffing. Even if we're going back to a conventional arrangement where we have full class sizes, how realistic is it that we're going to cut staff related to that?
So that's a question we're kind of debating around right now. So 2 things is, one is if we were to go back, quote unquote, what the old normal was, I could pretty much tell you, because of what our enrollments are and stuff, that we could return to where we were pre-COVID, removing that, majority of that. Now, saying that, if they put certain stipulations in, so let's say they go, hey, you can go pre-COVID, but we still want you to do a virtual option if the state ed comes up with something like that. Well, that I couldn't do with current staff, so then that would cut into that a little bit. So those are the things that it becomes a little bit tricky with. Also saying that is, the other thing we wanted to take a look at was taking a look at where all our students are currently, and we've talked about this in terms of type of support programs, enrichment programs, however you want to label it, is if we were able to go back to quote unquote pre-COVID, but we were able to notice that, you know what, our students are missing this because of what we've been doing for the past year, and it's not a fault of any, but it's just more because of the way the situation is we'd say, you know what, I'd like to take a few $100,000, put in a support program, and let's see how we can kind of help our students and staff so that everyone can kind of continue for us to move forward.
Sure.
So that's why when Rich was talking about before is, if we go pre-COVID, I still might come back and say, you know what, I'd still like to use a little bit of this to, yes, put back everything that we had, but then we'd also like to do that support type of stuff.
And there's no line item currently in the budget other than the COVID number.
That's
for
correct.
those services right now.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted just clarification, and I'm not sure if that was your intent earlier, about the 10% pullback of departmental budgets based on uncertainty of state aid. For clarification, that budget, that negative 1.6 million, that's an all-in budget. That's funding COVID possibilities, that's funding departments without cutting back 10%.
That's correct. There
Correct.
is not, we did not, like, if you remember, no, I know what you're asking now, Mr. Johnson, is, if you remember, it was probably last year around March or April when we were hearing that the state was going to hold 20%, right? And that was always been, excuse me, that's always been a number that's been thrown out. We knew that we could never hit 20% in the budget. So we went and tried to identify items in the 2020-21 budget that we said, we're not going to purchase right out of the gate. We're going to hold off on these. And I want to say we got close to around $1 million. This does not include us identifying 10% right now. I think that's what you're asking.
Correct.
Correct. So,
Meaning that if we decided to take some of that, it would lower that 1.6, right? I think that
yeah.
better answers it too.
So the 1.6, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's department head saying this is what I need. That's a ceiling budget.
Correct.
Meaning it can only come down based on the, Suffolk County saying it's all right to go back to normal operations on the COVID side and maybe squeeze in programs or shifting money around from different programs.
Put it this way, and I'm going to simplify in just terms of numbers, right? If we just to do that is, if we're talking right now that COVID is costing us about $950,000, right? We also know that if, this is also talking about us as a 2.94, right? And the reason we continuously we're looking at is the times everyone has been in, and we were high last year. We're always within our tax levy. So let me just say that. We never have asked to pierce the tax, and we wouldn't. There's also $600,000 in that. If we go from a 4.22 to a 2.94, that's $600,000. You have $900-something thousand in COVID. That's almost the 1.6 that's right sitting there. So let's pretend this. If we were to add no programs, which you were talking about, we were just going to go back to pre-COVID. We went to the cap. We'd almost be flat right now. That's where we'd be.
Fully funded without
Correct.
COVID maxing out.
Now, the advantage we have is last year we did a very good job meeting 1920, so we had surplus. What we don't know yet, and which goes to what you were talking about, Mr. Borowski, is we don't know how this year is going to end yet. That we do not know. It's going to be a little bit in the red to a little bit in the black. I don't think you'll see numbers like we have. I don't think you'll see that. We're a little short-handed right now, so we're trying to figure out some of that, but that's one thing. So we don't know what this year will be. So some of the money that you said, that $200,000, it could be used for this year, right? It's a possibility. The other piece that plays into it is that if you fill it, right? So let's say we end up in this hole, and I think Ms. Byrne might have answered this question at some point is, okay, we take the money and we put it towards it, and then when do you do the next year, right? Because you're just plugging a hole, and if you don't do something systemically, that hole is going to be there, right? That's like when we talk about one-shot revenues are great, but you don't like to use them for things that are reoccurring, because then once you don't have it, you don't have it, right? So those are some of the things that play around with this. So we can take the money to put towards it to meet that 1.6, so we're not in the red this year, but then how do we make it up the next year after that? That becomes a huge question, okay?
I got a question, actually. Going back to that slide where you showed 2020, 22, 23 through, I think it was 27, 28, right there.
Yeah.
So the 0% in 26, 27, that's projecting our tax levy cap at 0?
Correct.
Meaning if we go to .01, we bust the cap?
No. Yes.
Okay.
Meaning that anything over 0 would be piercing. But what I forget who I was talking to, but you could go out at 2% or 1%, piercing the cap, and if it failed, you're at 0, which is where you would have been anyway. So really why I said it's an interesting budget year is it becomes almost a no-risk pierce year for the district. It's something for everybody to keep in mind that inflation and tax-based growth based on that estimate is at 2.6, looking at the red line. That should be about where maybe the rest of Long Island is as an average. You could come in anywhere around there, or judgmentally, whatever you want to do. And if it passes 60%, you have that in you. But if it doesn't, there's really no harm. You're at 0 anyway.
This is where I become very cautious, and Mr. Snyder and I was talking about, it's a projection, and he said that before, it's a projection with a capital P, right? So I wouldn't want people saying, okay, we're okay, and we're just gonna wait for this year, because we know how quickly things can change, and we can have different politicians, and you
just the rules on building aid alone could blow this out of the water.
That's correct.
The general shape of it, I think, is fairly presented, that's what the tax levies will look like, but there's no shortage of willingness to tinker with building aid at this point, and even the tax cap itself. But based on what we know now, that's what I'm seeing. And I'm always reluctant to put estimates up, but in this case, I thought it was interesting to disclose, and we had this discussion with the BAC also.
Now, Rich, I'm not sure if I misunderstood. You spoke of 21-20 and how, 21-22 and how we were up to almost 4% based on building aid. But then related to that, it drops in 26-27 because debt service comes up. Is that a related issue or?
No, they're not the same bond issue.
Yeah.
Not the same bond issue. That one, the building aid that is expiring and causing us to be at 4.2 began in 2000. You'd have to subtract 15 years, right? 2004, 2005. This is debt. This is expense that the district borrowed in 2014 that comes off of our expenditure books in 26, 27.
Okay.
And that's set. It's already been borrowed, and the amortization schedules already exist to both sides of the revenue
Check it.
expense.
Thanks.
Mr. Snyder, I would just say worst case scenario, if the board went out for a 2.94 tax levy, in the worst case scenario, we would be 1.4 in the hole still. Is that what you're saying?
Right now, the number's 1.6, sir. Yeah.
Have we ever budgeted for a tax increase where we thought we were going to be in the red at the end of the year, though?
Have we ever budgeted for?
I mean, worst case scenario, we're going to be 1.6 in the red next year, you're saying?
Based on what we see now, yeah, that's the high end
To
at
answer your-
2.94.
Yeah, to answer your question, this year, different. We did not go beneath our tax levy, but we did come into this year saying that we were a couple $100,000 in the red, $200,000 in the red, but we were not concerned about it because we knew we had a couple of other things in the hopper, so to speak.
I know this is worst case scenario, but I'm assuming we do not foresee all these things to come to fruition.
Sorry, say that again, sorry.
I know this is worst case scenario, so I'm assuming we're feeling very comfortable that all these expenditures are not going to come to fruition.
Well,
If you're
I mean,
budgeting,
I'm being videoed.
we tried at this point in the process to present, worst case, there's no hiding that, but remember 2 weeks ago, we were at 1,590,000, and then some issues happened with certain movements of students that caused it to grow, so it's not,
And literally within 2 weeks, we had,
the information
that we
came on
could
the
account,
18th.
that we could account for.
So, I mean, there's always those variables that could sway it, but yeah, we're trying to present to you right now an all-in budget, and that's now going to change going forward, because we're now going to start to peel back, and that's where more risk gets introduced, because as we peel back and try to arrive at a budget that does not include COVID, but maybe includes some other expenditures, you have more variation of risk where we're like, okay, if we're adjusting a deficit down, we're now taking on more variables that could cause us to be wrong. But I don't disagree with what you're saying, that it's supposed to be a worst-case number, yeah.
all right, I mean, I know this is something we've been talking about. I mean, I would ask Dr. Harney if he would still look into a quote for lights, and I would ask the board at a meeting in the near future to see what that price would be, to see if we'd want to go above the 2.92 for lights, if the board would consider that, after we have the quote, to see what it comes in at.
If the board wish, I can absolutely get you a quote. I said I can do that, yeah.
All right, I mean, we have until April 20th to come up with what we want to see as a tax levy. Right now, the recommendation is 2.94.
And so I think where we were, sorry to interrupt, is that for the March 1st piece that we have to put in, we were looking, and I guess I'm asking for if the board is okay with that. We were asking, are we okay with putting in the 294? Again, it doesn't really mean anything. It's more for a conversational piece. And then we'll continue to adjust and we'll make our decisions as we're going forward. Maybe we'll hear more information too by the time.
Anybody have any issues with that? Mr. Brasky?
Just one clarification. If we go in at 294, it essentially doesn't lock us into anything, right? We can move up and
Does
down
Correct.
without issue.
And you'll see a lot of districts make changes in both directions. You'll see it happen across the board.
Clean up your
Great.
budget a little bit.
Yeah, what we've learned is districts put a number out on March 1st, and then it changes dramatically on April 22nd.
Yeah. And then what you'll see on April 23rd is in the paper, it'll say, this is what they had March 1st, this is what they had this, and they're not piercing the cap. That's what you'll say.
So I got
Would
one.
it make more, would it make more sense to go with the 4.22 so it could only go down?
That, it's really,
I'm just saying, if you were to put something in the paper saying we're at 2.94 in March and then it went to 4, it looks like obviously it was a 1% increase there. When if you did 4.22, when you could show a decrease.
I'd say the goal is to go with 2.94 with the hope that you can tighten up your budget the best you can, and if you can't, then you figure out what to do on the revenue side after that, going up to the budget. At the end of the day, the public's got to vote, doesn't matter what's in Newsday. The public's got to vote on a number and a budget, so that's going to be something we present in April.
it really becomes a preference, it really does.
I really need a little clarification, Mr. Snyder, because I think you said that we don't need to go out at that 4% number. We can leave that off of the vote since that library budget was already voted for, and then we can put it in on our reorg meeting that we are passing that money through the district. Am I right about that or no?
We're talking about levy versus budget. Right. On the budget side, which is currently 4.06, we're going to remove the library debt, bring us down to budget of 279, and then we'll do that resolution at reorg to get the library debt in. The other issue here is the tax levy, which is something separate.
And don't want to confuse people as we're using four point
Yeah.
something at two different ends. The library budget to budget number is different than the tax levy. Though we're both talking about 4s and 2s, I get that
Our
percentage.
budget to budget is 279.
Right,
Let's just,
so-
that's it.
Yeah, I
The
definitely.
Because
revenue
we are
is
going to do
294.
that. So we have a tax levy at 294 that could go to 4.22 based on discussions. Our budget to budget is now 2.79
I definitely want to do that 2.9 number and not anything higher than 3
on the levy.
for the Newsday.
Well, both numbers will end up being in the paper. Both the budget to budget will be in the paper and the tax levy will be in the paper. Both of them will be. I can almost guarantee that.
Right now,
Right.
we'd be reading 2.94 tax levy, 2.79
Budget.
budget to budget.
Budget to budget,
Correct.
that's correct.
4.22 is if you add the library debt service into the budget, which we're not
4.06.
4.06.
4.06.
Thank you.
Just one more thing, not to digress, so we're looking at, we're here at 1.6 million, and I know from the past that we figure out a way to make it work until hopefully, barring COVID, barring these unforeseen issues. Let's talk about this fiscal year, because right now we're saying 1.6 million in the negative. Let's use that surplus from last year to cover down on that. But I remember this fall, we did the audit report and we spoke about, 1.2 negative for current year?
About 1.4. So about 1.4, and that's what we were talking
Where are
about.
we at with that? Because we don't look like we have surplus to start next year if we eat it up in this year.
Correct, and that's where I said is that's the number that right now we're trying to figure out, to be honest with you, and Rich is again, a little bit short-handed right now, so he's been playing around with that. We're trying to figure out, and that's why I was talking to when Mr. Borowski before said, hey, we'd still have that 200 in the black from those numbers, said, well, we don't know what this year is going to bring yet. We think we're going to be, honestly, a few $100,000 to maybe $500,000 on either side of the equation right now. We got to do more math. Okay, we have to do more. But that's what we're thinking right now. Rich, is that fair to say?
Correct. I think
So
it's 500 plus
either half in the black, half two in the red, and that's kind of where we're falling right now. There's a lot of moving parts to it.
So I guess for a budget process, I don't mind starting high, throwing it all out on the table and figuring out like how to get to a good end game for the community, for the district as a whole. What I don't like is when we talk about current year execution and we throw out these big numbers and we spook the
Yep.
herd. And then
We'll know more of
we end up
that.
in the black, and
Yeah.
meanwhile we're saying, wow, we got 1.4 million, because then it affects
Yep.
our decisions.
Yep, and in all fairness, that then, if that's the case, is we will know more as we get closer to the mid-March, early April, which we don't have to do anything until April 20th. So if you wanted to go with, what Mr. Miller proposed first and go all in first, and then we kind of pull it back, we can do that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about everything, so
Yeah.
that's why we're just trying to give options as we're
Because
going.
I'm sitting up here as a decision maker, I'm saying maybe we should go out with the full 4%, because if we're gonna be 1.4 in the negative this year and 1.6 next year, how do we climb out of a $3 million debt?
Right.
But it doesn't sound like that's the scenario, so that's why, I just,
That's fine.
You're scheduled for that operating projection to come to you the second week of March. That's the norm. I normally like to get February's
So
payroll
somewhere
out of the
around
way
March
before we
10th
do.
or something like that, right? I believe, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
That second week, March 13th, something like that.
Just so I have the numbers clear in my head then. So best case scenario, we're $500,000 on the plus side this year. We've got 1.1, or what is it, 1.8 that we're carrying over?
So we carried over from 1920, 1.8.
1.8, okay.
So we then, this year, to this 2021 budget, and not to confuse people, is we added 1.4 due to staff, due to PPE. It was all COVID related. It was all
Right.
COVID related. All right? Where we're sitting right now, because things happen, you have leaves, you have different things that haven't happened, all different things that haven't happened due to the COVID, right? So where we think we are going to be right now is $500,000 on either side of it. That's
Right.
what we think. But we'll do more, and we'll have more for you within the next couple of weeks. That takes care of us for 2021. And then we're talking about 21, 22. Right now, if we want to have 294, it's 1.6. If we started at 4.22, well, that number automatically just went from 1.6 to 100,000 to 1 million. That's what just
Yeah,
happened.
right.
Okay? So that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I understand
And
Mr.
so
Johnson's
any
position.
operating surplus or deficit we have in 2021 would add or
It's
take away
important.
from the 1.8 from the previous year.
how we're doing today is
the point-
important on what number we go out with in April. That's all I'm saying.
That's correct. And really, the point you're bringing forward right now is, I can't with 100% certain, and even April, you can't give 100%, but we'll give you a better idea of what 2021 is going to end like. So that is the piece. So,
It's very tough with facilities and PPS alone to do. I mean, we all do it and you'll have the number, but, a lot of things happen in May and June that sometimes are difficult to project, but right now I agree. We are either, we're in a range of 500 surplus to 500 in the red.
Which is
And
better than 1.4.
correct. Correct.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but that number, to me, I conceptualize as saying whether if we're 500 in the black, it adds to the 1.8 that you already had from the previous year, or conversely, it takes away. Now you look at 21, 22, say now I have another 1.6 coming in on it.
So if the agreement is to go out higher, and then for us to come peel back as we're going through it, that's fine. It'll be one of those things. Again, we'll probably be the highest out there, but it is what it is.
I would want to do it because what if we got at 2.94, we could only go up from there. I mean, if we were going to ask the board to go up, we'd go up. It doesn't matter, it's not a big deal. I mean,
Right, it's really just a paper, and we can explain it. I mean, we've been talking about this in public, so it's
I
one
think
of
the
those things.
strategy is we're going to try our best to support the educational needs of the students and also support the taxpayers. So the goal is 2.94 with the reality that we may need to go higher. I wouldn't want to set a false expectation of we're going to pump you with the highest tax rate and maybe come down. I'd rather start with a goal of somewhere in the inflationary range. If things go bad in this current year and COVID is going to be around next year, then we have to potentially go higher.
Okay. So then we'll come out at the 4.22, if everyone's comfortable with that, and then we're going to continue to do what we're doing.
yeah, I was saying 4.22, it sounds like they're saying 2.94.
Start low.
I think we're starting low. If we can only go up, I mean, I think that frustrates people. If you give people the worst case scenario and you come down, I think people will see that in good faith. But we might not need to go up, but we may go up. Agreed, but I'm just saying, I'm giving you my perspective. If you guys want to go at 2.98, that's up to you. So, Mr. Johnson, sounds like you're at 2.94.
2.94.
Ms. Byrne, 2.94. 2.94.
So that's what we'll go out, and we'll continue to educate and bring the information to you, and we'll go from there.
Any other questions or comments about the budget that people need information on before the next meeting?
There's only board members and employees.
I was talking to the board members.
A minor thing for the next meeting, because it is about technology. I'm wondering just what happens. I know it's been 4 years with these Chromebooks, and we started, I think, with 3 different grades with them at the time, because my son is one of them. So maybe, I guess that's why that's a big line in the budget, but is there any, like, just if you could investigate this, can we sell them? Some people might have newer ones because they replace them. Do we sell them? Do we take them back? Do we get any rebate?
There are a couple options, and Ms. Kiefer has been doing a tremendous job in trying to look into the different options. Some of it is, do we continue to maintain the Chromebooks K-12, and maybe we look at something else, where we're going back to carts a little bit, and then we would still have them if we ever ended up where we had to give everyone at home again like we did originally, we'd still be able. That would help us with our cost. Also is, some of it would be, would you go out and try to continue the contract with the Chromebook and try to extend it? That's a little pricey, but it is something worthwhile. Or do you just start using it as your replacements and your parts and those? So those are all things that Ms. Kiefer and her staff have been looking at on a regular basis. Remember how we met last week just talking about some of this exact stuff. So she'll be able to give you some of that information as we come forward. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Harney. Thank you, Mr. Snyder. At this time, we'll turn it over to Dr. Fulton for an academic department highlight presentation.
Good evening. So hopefully I'll be able to hold everyone's attention after Mr. Snyder's excellent job. So appreciate that. So just as we start tonight, we just wanted to highlight some of the academic initiatives and some of our focus for this year. Obviously, we've heard the term unprecedented times in like the start of every press media release and notification, but it really, truly is amazing what the staff at Bayport Blue Point has done. And so as I start the presentation, I would like to thank all of our teachers for their hard work and effort. If we can give them a little round of applause. And also related to that, especially this year, Ms. Kiefer, Ms. Neer, and our technology staff for the assistance and support that they've lent to our staff. Because of their efforts, our teachers have really been able to focus on teaching for learning for our students. So again, Ms. Kiefer, who's in the back, thank you as well. So purpose of our presentation, obviously, is everything that we're doing is rooted in our district goals. We want to focus on students still progressing, moving forward with the curriculum and student achievement, and then to provide that balance of student experiences where they can take what they've learned and apply it both in and outside of the classroom. We really have tried to reframe this year as a window of opportunity as challenges are faced. And it really, for us, when we get the opportunity to go in the classrooms and watching the resiliency of our students as they are coming in day to day and going through with their classwork and their assignments is really something that's amazing to be seen. So anytime during the day, whenever we get a chance, we try to go into the classrooms and kind of feed off the energy that's coming from our students and our staff. We've really tried to keep the balance or our focus, our district goals of learning, and also with our environment, while maintaining connections. Because in this time, in these times, the relationship of students to staff and administration, and those connections, without them, you really don't have the ability to be able to for learning and for growth. So it's something that we continue to emphasize. So in our English language arts departments, a lot of the things that we've been doing in addition to the increase in the use of the software applications. And this year, we're very excited. In a future board meeting, we're actually going to have our capstone research students. This is the second year of the 2-year course. They're going to come and present their research projects to you. So this is something that we're very excited and looking forward to. was a lot of hard work and effort to bring in the capstone program to Bayport Blue Point. And so these are the students that have completed the seminar program and are now in capstone researchers. Some of the topics that they picked to research are absolutely amazing. So just plug in some future, it'll be student presentations that we'll be watching. And in addition, obviously we maintain our rigor with not just our advanced placement courses, but within all of our classrooms. Really trying to take advantage of the hybrid model with regards to students and collaboration, both in and out of the classroom, using the software application tools we have, and that really as students collaborate with each other, work with each other, teach each other, that really to kind of strengthen their writing and to really give them an ability to analyze text and information. And it's also going to be a common theme that we're also going to talk about in social studies, the ability to decipher and analyze information to be able to come and their own hypotheses and their own conclusions, which is obviously a skill that is more important each and every day. In addition, our students are creating presentation websites, portfolios, all these different forms and different avenues to give us different products, because it's called transferability, when students can take the information that they learn in one setting and then apply it in a challenge into another is really the highest degree of student understanding. And our students have been able now producing products and different things that they've been able before. So we're very happy with that. Our teachers continue to work together to think critical, to work on this critical thinking cells, make connections from the classroom material to everything they encounter in the classroom to the real world. And then obviously our goal is to continue to meet the next generation standards and implementation. Our next department's math, business, and technology. Things are looking different, and really as the students face a variety of new challenges. It's been easy, but they have really risen to the challenge. Team collaboration is important, especially in identifying and addressing gaps. And here we have Ms. Hicks and Ms. Truffoletti with quick conversation between classes. But departmentally, I see the notes for the slides that were provided by chair people are available, so my apologies as I see that. But really what it comes down to is, in all of our departments, but math especially, they were identifying the high priority standards to see if any gaps began to occur since last March, and so then be able to reinforce those skills as they tackled the curriculum this year. And with that, in future slides, we're going to talk about assessment and the creative ways that the math department has been able to do that. Again, reimagining assessments. It's with students to really kind of look at different ways to be able to assess if students are meeting standards and objectives, and shorter in-class assessments, utilizing multiple platforms, assessing students both virtually and in person, use of at-home notebook, non-traditional, digital notebook checks, etc. Focusing on SEL, our teachers, we have focused sample of middle school that this is an example of what our teachers are doing, be able to reframe things and post that even not necessarily math related, for that positive mindset, be able to build resiliency and how they're looking at things. So really kind of working on students so when they're faced with situations, how could they word that utilizing I statements to reinforce the positive things that are going on in their day-to-day life and in the classroom. Moving beyond the numbers, be able to create activities where students to highlight diversity and highlight mathematicians and create an Instagram account for him as an example of that transferability we talk about, where they take a look and mathematicians and individuals or concepts not necessarily highlighted in the traditional curriculum, but be able to reinforce and support the student study and have a broader understanding of the field of mathematics. And this was an example of an Instagram page created for mathematician Sophia Germain, so something that was interesting. Again, moving beyond the numbers is taking a look and trying to find that real-world application of mathematicians and the work that they did and how it impacted daily life and, in this case, our nation's history. In addition, for the school store, for the virtual family, the family theme, this is a real-world application where merchandise was designed, created, and sold with the creation of an online store. And you can see this is an example of some of the merchandise that was available for purchase. In the technology, we really wanted to focus on in-house manufacturing, and this is, again, thank you to the board for their support which allowed us, when we redesigned the STEM labs with the purchase of equipment, we really wanted to focus on the students needed, obviously, a classroom space in the labs, but you need the ability to be able to design and also manufacture. And that actually, the video that Mr. Honey and the technology class really kind of emphasized and kind of brought those things to life with regards to the equipment and the ability for us to be able to do that. Purposeful projects, again, here's the look at the seniors where they eat lunch when the weather's warm as an example of the students building something that's going to be evident in their everyday daily life, which is a nice connection from the classroom to the students in the school. We really tried to take a look what the new lab is, kind of redesign the projects that came along in the course and curriculum. So again, this is the design of the Lighthouse Lab, which again we talked about earlier in the meeting. And really with the increase of technology, with the increase of software, with the increase of the equipment that we have in the labs, has really taken what the students can create to the next level. And these are some of the example of using a design project with our computer software, and then a finished project there on the right. Again, the lighthouses, which is a very popular project, and it's something that is really, you can see the top. You then have to print with the use of the 3D printers, which again were part of our new redesign labs. So these are some of the other products to be able to do, and again, the students be able to use their creative side with regards to coloring, design, lettering, and again, all this is laid out with a combination of design with software, and then the old-fashioned, the traditional tools, skills, and tools in the lab. And again, the use of our students with regards to actual designing and projects. So something that we're very proud of. And then we, again, to be able to promote and take a look, and this is, again, use of technology with regards to creation of Instagram account to promote some of the things and to celebrate that we're doing in the class. Our world languages, really, again, as every department adjusts to new standards, is really increase the use of the target language within the classroom with the instruction to focus on immersion. Use of a variety, again, of platforms for synchronous instruction. And it's not just for our virtual students, but the use of these applications within the classroom. If there is a silver lining with instruction, is the comfort level and the ability of our staff now to use a lot of the instructional software that is out there and to make it part of the daily learning process is definitely something that's a positive. Really, for us too, the Seal of Biliteracy, we actually have 2 students last year that successfully completed the Seal of Biliteracy, and we have 4 candidates this year, so that's something that's impressive. So these are students that have experience with the language other than the coursework that they're taking, but through the project and through the use of going through certain steps, that they're able to actually certify that they can speak and communicate the language at a level. So the Seal of Biliteracy is something that supports in addition to the classes that we offer here at Bayport Blue Point. In science, one of the big things for the elementary level is we had started a couple of years ago, prior to my arrival, the district had adopted interactive science as that bridge between the Common Core standards and then the new standards. And this year we piloted the 5th grade Elevate science program. And our instructional counselors, we're going to look is continue is to now increase and expand that based off the success this year of the program to grades 3 and 4 for next year in the primary grades. And really the new science program fits the new science standards as it really focuses on the inquiry process as compared to the scientific method, and really problem solving and skills for students with regards to science and experiments and labs and things of that nature. In addition, Elevate comes with a similar platform as our Savas math program, so there's ease of use with regards to teacher and student as they're utilizing the program. And we've really, again, worked on the science quest, labs, demonstrations, and it's something that's been a real positive and we've been very happy with. In the secondary science, a lot of the things that we're doing is really kind of focus, again, on utilization of some of the software applications within the classroom. And some of the challenges we have, both the elementary and the science, is for safety precautions and things. Labs traditionally were done in teams, and labs are traditionally done with groups of students at a lab table, much like when we were in school. And so our teachers really have had to be creative and be able to give those same labs hands-on opportunities to be able to still participate in those activities while also maintaining the appropriate social distancing and protocol. So we've been able now, with regards to gizmos and a couple online applications where we now have increased our repertoire for how students can experience the science labs, and that's both K through 12. Increased use of digital notebooks, collaboration, jam boards, and breakout rooms where students can independently and through guided practice work on the concepts and then put them to use within the classroom. We've also tried to, again, I talked about MOSAMAC, which is like Gizmos. So these are some of the alternate lab programs that we've utilized. And it's really increased the interaction with the students with these activities, and we've been very happy with the outcome and the results. Social studies, most certainly for this time of year, is that we've really kind of take a look at the enduring issues within each unit and see how we can actually connect analysis of primary source documents, which is something, and teaching students to be able to analyze and decipher. Responding to current events is something that, for each day, depending on the classroom, our social studies teachers have been able to focus on to give a safe place for conversation and discussion in the classroom. And again, like the other departments, increase the use of the instructional applications. Also going back, the social studies department also, with the current events, used the time also to focus on SAL check-ins with students in regards to how they're feeling and how the things that they're experiencing, and give them that space to have the conversation as they watch the news with regards to current events, and give them an opportunity to be able to work through it. So reinforcing the connections and relations that we have emphasized as a district. The other thing, again, is, for United States history, and it's something important. I'm a former social studies teacher. Analysis of the Constitution, economics, the stock market simulation game, Battle of the President tournaments where the students made a case to which their assigned president was more effective. Save My Agency, budget simulations. These, again, are kind of real-world applications trying to take that content, take it off the screen, off the paper, and give them in some real-life application. Moving forward for us, we're going to continue, and it's something that you're going to hear moving forward, is that we are going to continue to have to monitor our students in regards to identify the skills and gaps that might have resulted with regards to COVID, and be able to reinforce and provide support. Continue to identify our remote and instructional software practices, because we might utilize them, but if something's not giving us the bang for the buck, or if one application is being utilized more than another, we make the decisions to, obviously benefit students, but also to be economically efficient with the decisions that we're making. Can continue to analyze, to provide a long-term analysis of our student achievement, and especially the impact of any of our curricular initiatives and adjustments. And we have to continue with our next generation standards, curricular revisions, and implementation, which that work is always ongoing. So with that being said, thank you very much, and I leave it open to you for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Fulton. Any questions from trustees? Ms. Barr?
Oh, thank you. That was just an incredibly huge amount of information and work that was all condensed into one presentation. So really well done. I can't wait for COVID to be over so we can finally get our building tour. And I'm so sorry that we have all these beautiful workspaces and then they're not just filled with students. But I hope that this opportunity for them to come in, like Mr. Honey did, will allow some of them to be in these labs every day of the week, which would be great.
And it's when I tour the buildings, for example, some of the things you say, obviously talking to the kids, utilization of the library, and those kinds of things that, obviously with regards to space and those kinds of things, those are the things that the students are really looking forward for the opportunity to come back and to be able to use. So we are looking forward to that time.
Yeah, and then I just really love that the teachers are using all these new apps, and they're really they've expanded their ways of teaching, and I think I don't know if they do this or if there's a club that does this, but I'm thinking about community-based science where data is collected within communities and uploaded, Project Budburst or like bird watching. It just would be cool if there was a club that did that maybe in another year, or if we might already do that, I don't know. But there's a lot of possibilities.
No, I agree 100%. And like I said, we do try to find, Dr. Harney, and as I work with him and he mentors me, and my growth as administrators always look as a challenge and opportunity. And really, what the teachers have done, and that's why I started the presentation with thanking Ms. Kiefer and Ms. Neer with professional development and all the technology staff, is that they've been able to provide the support where teachers have been able to build confidence. And once teachers begin to build confidence with regards to some of the software and some of the things that we're providing in the applications, that's when that creative point comes in with that creative tension. And really, our teachers have really taken the lead and taken some of the things that have been provided and be able to create opportunities that we didn't even envision as we started it. And there's been wonderful two-way communication with our teachers as they come across with regards to applications and software. This, can we look into this? Can we look into that? And even after we utilize it, giving us the feedback and say, you know what, this is the one we want to stay with. This one's not necessarily having the impact that we have. So I look forward to what the teachers can continue to create, and I think as we move forward and the stress and pressures of COVID begin to reside and go into the rearview mirror, I think that's going to free up the energies for them to take the skills that they've developed in this time and to really continue to expand in a creative way the use of the programs.
Thank you again for the presentation. It was very well done, and I don't speak on behalf of any of the Bayport teachers, as I haven't spoken for them, but from a teaching perspective, from a pedagogical perspective, this has been the hardest year of teaching ever. So thank all the teachers and everybody involved, of course, but going in day to day feels like your first day back. And I know these great new programs are fantastic and everything, but I think let them, and I know everybody does here, and I'm not accusing, but let everybody just catch their breath and teach and do their job as best as they can, because this is a nightmare for everyone. The apps are great, but they're awful in terms of the situation. So to the faculty, thank you for doing your job. I know it's awful. And I know here you have the support from your great administrators, your secretarial staff, the buildings and grounds, thank them for all the work they've done. But for the teachers, don't think you have to keep looking for the next great app to apply. Just do the best you can do, and the students appreciate it. And for the parents and community, if your teachers have done anything for you, a letter of recommendation or a scholarship letter, just send them a thank you. That goes from the students and the parents, and they'll appreciate it. So just wanted to say that for the teaching community. You're doing a great job.
And thank you for that. And one of the things that we're lucky is we have a number of shared decision-making committees or instructional councils or technology committee. So when our teachers, they've actually been very good with letting us know if we need to pump our brakes and slow down in certain areas, if we maybe need to hold off on certain things. So that communication, we do try to time and at least try to gauge when perhaps we might be providing too much at some point. And then having that two-way communication allows us to try to provide them what they need without trying to overload them. So we're always trying to thread that needle, but thank you for your comments.
So, we always talk money and we squabble tax, how much the taxes, how much the budget, what to include, what not to include. And they're important discussions, but I think when we look up here and we go through these slides and the way you presented it, it really drives home the point of what it's all about. What this is really about and what it's paying for. So great job, and it's a great reminder to the decision makers and the people in the community to really know what's going into their money, the value. And I think we have a huge value. I'd recommend that we leave with this one next time.
Me too.
We can always point back, don't worry, look at what we're getting at.
Thank you, Dr. Fulton. Any other trustee questions? Thank you so much. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items the board would like to remove from the consent agenda and move to the regular agenda? Not hearing any, can I have a motion to approve consent agenda items F, H, I, J, K, and L? Mr. Siri, second. Mr. Brodsky, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Just a quick update before we do our one regular agenda item. Looks like there are 4 board members running for the BOCES board. There are 2 open seats. We do not have to have this into March 19th. So if we wanted to wait another board meeting to see if anyone here wanted to run for the BOCES board, we could do that. Or if we'd like to just send these 4 candidates, we can do that as well. So it's really up to us how we want to proceed. Obviously, these 4 board members have been on the BOCES board, highly respected individuals, but there are 2 people for multiple reasons that there are 2 open seats. Ms. Byrne?
Oh, thank you for putting that out there. I had been interested, but I just have too much on my plate right now, so I cannot run this year. But I'm glad you put that out there as an option.
All right. Are you sure you want to wait till the next board meeting, or are you confident right now that you would not want us to nominate you?
I'm confident now.
Okay. Mr. Brodsky, Mr. Siri, Mr. Johnson, any? I'm going to take that look as you guys do not want to run for the BOCES board. Okay. It's definitely more meetings. All right, so there are 4 board members here. Like I said, they've been on the BOCES board, highly respected individuals. If you're okay with this, we will nominate them from our school district right now. Anybody have any issues with that? All right, can I have a motion to approve and nominate these 4 individuals to the BOCES board for a 3-year term commencing July 1, 2021, ending on June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Ms. Byrne, second. Mr. Siri, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. At this time, we'll open it up to the community members for any new business. Not seeing any, we'll open it up to any trustees for new business. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Siri, second. Mr. Byrne, all in favor? Thank you, guys. Oh, 1 second, Mr. Snyder.
Are we doing that question?
Yeah, we were asked one question on YouTube. Mr. Snyder has the answer.
Yeah. There was a question from the community looking at the budget summary slide about why there was a reduction in library. And I'll just remind everybody that this is the COVID model. And under the model that we're operating on, certain staff members were redeployed into different capacities. And in this case, there was library services that were redeployed in other capacities. It doesn't mean that there is a reduction in library, and you'll see that on the next version of the budget, which will be coming next week or the week after, that that person, it will be assumed, will go back into the elementary library position that she was in, but there is no reduction, if I'm understanding the nature of the question. Right, okay.
Yep. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Snyder. We appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night. Appreciate your time.